The person who decided to create distance from you. The one who stepped back because the bond between you felt too intense and difficult to define, is now entering a quiet but deeply uncomfortable stage of awareness. There are rare connections in life that never arrive with noise, drama, or public declaration. They do not announce themselves. They do not ask for attention. They simply appear, softly at first, moving under the surface of ordinary thought until they slowly take over the inner world. Before either person fully understands what is happening, something inside has already shifted. The emotional current has already changed direction. A lasting imprint has already formed. This is the kind of connection people instinctively resist, not because it is meaningless, but because it carries a force that feels too strong to manage, too real to ignore, too deep to control. For a long time, this person convinced themselves that stepping away from you was the only reasonable option. They told themselves it was logic. They told themselves it was maturity. They told themselves it was protection. They repeated the same reasons again and again, building structure around their decision so it would feel stable and correct. Distance, in their mind, became a solution, a way to protect their routine, a way to protect their identity, a way to keep everything familiar untouched. But there was one truth they failed to see clearly. Distance does not weaken a real connection. It intensifies it. It sharpens it. It deepens it. Every step away did not reduce what they felt. It expanded it. Every attempt to forget became another reminder. Every effort to move on created another layer of awareness. And now something has shifted inside them in a way they did not expect. Quiet, heavy, unavoidable, a growing realization that refuses to fade. Let this be understood clearly. They did not step back because you were unimportant. That idea is false. That idea distorts reality. That idea misunderstands the depth of what actually exists. People do not walk away from what holds no value. They walk away from what feels too powerful to manage. They walk away from what challenges the structure of their life. They walk away from what begins to change their identity from the inside. This connection was never ordinary. It was never predictable. It was never something that could be placed into a simple category. It did not follow rules. It did not wait for timing. It did not ask permission. It simply existed. And anything that exists outside of control can feel overwhelming to someone who depends on control to feel safe. That is where the struggle begins. That is where the conflict grows. That is where resistance forms. Now they are facing what they tried not to face. The silence they created is no longer empty. It is full of reflection, full of memory, full of realization, full of you. And in that silence, something undeniable has started to rise. They see you differently now, not as a passing presence, not as a simple connection, but as someone who left a permanent mark on their emotional world, someone who shifted the way they feel, think, and react. What they feel is not soft or unclear. It is strong, it is raw, it is persistent. It appears even when they try to distract themselves, even when they try to move forward, even when they try to deny it. Yet resistance still exists inside them, a conflict between truth and fear, between recognition and control, between what they feel and what they think they should feel. Because this kind of connection does not stay quiet. It does not stay hidden. It does not stay contained for long. It continues to surface, again and again, in thoughts they did not invite, in memories they did not expect, in emotions they cannot fully explain. And the more they try to suppress it, the more clearly it reveals itself. They are not someone you can easily erase from memory, not someone who fades with time, not someone who becomes irrelevant through distance. They remain, they stay, they echo, and this echo becomes part of their inner world. This bond never aligned with their plans, expectations, or responsibilities. Every attempt they made to organize it into something manageable failed. Every attempt to label it failed. Every attempt to reduce its importance failed. Instead of shrinking, it expanded. Instead of weakening, it strengthened. Instead of disappearing, it deepened. The more they resisted, the more they noticed your presence in everything, in thoughts, in reactions, in silence, in the spaces between moments. Even small interactions became unforgettable. A glance that lasted a second longer than expected. A smile that stayed in memory far beyond its moment. A tone of voice that carried warmth they could not ignore. These small fragments began to accumulate, forming something larger inside them. And this is where the inner shift becomes undeniable. They started feeling exposed in your presence, not because you forced it, not because you demanded it, but because your authenticity revealed something in them they were not ready to face. Something real, something unguarded, something true. That exposure became uncomfortable, not harmful, but revealing. And what is revealed cannot be easily hidden again. So they made a decision, a retreat, a step back, a withdrawal. Not because there was nothing, not because they did not feel, not because they were indifferent, but because the intensity became too large for what they were ready to handle at that time. They called it logic, they called it timing, they called it responsibility, they called it practicality. But underneath all those words was something simpler. Fear of emotional depth they could not control. Fear of a bond that did not behave like anything they had experienced before. Fear of change that would affect the life they carefully built. And so distance became their tool, their shield, their attempt to restore control over something that no longer felt controllable. But control is an illusion when emotion is real. And now the paradox reveals itself fully. The more they tried to escape, the more they became aware. The more they resisted, the more they felt. The more they distanced themselves, the more present you became inside their mind. Small moments return without warning. A simple memory, a quiet interaction, a feeling that arrives without permission, a thought that appears in silence, a presence that does not leave. It lingers, it repeats, it grows. And even now, without them realizing it fully, the connection continues to exist in the background of everything they do. It does not fade. It does not break. It does not dissolve under pressure. It remains strong, steady, unmoving, and eventually, when resistance weakens, recognition becomes unavoidable. You are not forgotten. You are not replaceable. You are not temporary. You are something that changed their inner world in a way they cannot reverse. And this realization becomes louder in silence than any thought they tried to use against it. Because some connections do not end with distance. They expand through it. They deepen through it. They survive through it. And they wait, quietly, until awareness finally catches up with truth. What follows is a steady state of fascination, of longing, of quiet inner unrest. The bond is not spoken aloud, yet it stands undeniable. It lingers in silence, and in that silence it strengthens. It grows sharper precisely because it was pushed away for so long. They truly believed distance would reduce the pull. They believed space would restore balance, would return control, would dissolve the intensity that had quietly taken root in their life. They assumed separation would reset everything, that physical removal would end emotional influence, that stepping away would bring order back into a life that once felt carefully arranged and predictable. For a time, they even convinced themselves of it. Days moved forward, weeks followed, perhaps months passed. Life continued on the surface in a familiar rhythm. Tasks were completed, duties were managed, conversations flowed normally with others. From the outside, nothing appeared disrupted. Everything looked stable. Everything looked unchanged. Yet underneath that surface, another reality was unfolding. The connection did not fade. It did not weaken. It remained alive in the quiet gaps between distractions. It surfaced in unexpected pauses, in ordinary hours, in moments that were never meant to carry meaning but suddenly did. It returned in thoughts they never planned to revisit. It rose in memories they never intended to keep alive. And despite every effort to suppress it, their mind kept circling back to you again and again. What unsettles them now is not just that the feeling remained, it is the deeper truth that it never left at all. It was always there, hidden beneath routines, covered by responsibilities, buried under carefully constructed reasoning, layer upon layer of justification placed over something still alive underneath. And now those justifications are starting to weaken. The explanations they once trusted no longer feel solid. The certainty they once leaned on is beginning to fracture. In its place grows a quieter but stronger awareness that what they experienced with you was not ordinary at all. It was not casual attraction. It was not a temporary emotional wave. It was something that left a permanent impression. And that changes everything. Because once a person realizes something has altered them at a deep level, pretending becomes harder. Denial loses structure. Distance loses meaning. The emotional defenses that once felt firm begin to loosen, piece by piece. What once felt like strength now feels fragile. What once felt like control now feels uncertain. What once felt like safety now feels heavy. This is where they stand now, at the edge of understanding they tried to avoid, between resistance and recognition, between the comfort of denial and the pull of truth. A part of them still clings to control, still tries to hold back the acknowledgement of what is real. A part of them fears what acceptance would mean, but another part is no longer willing to fight it. That part has grown tired of resistance, tired of silence, tired of pushing away what keeps returning, no matter how far it is sent. And that part understands something now with increasing clarity. No distance erased what was felt. No passage of time removed what was experienced. No logic fully explained the impact you left behind. Because some connections are not measured by conversation or proximity. They are not defined by time or circumstance. They are defined by imprint, by depth, by the way they change something inside a person permanently. Those are the connections that remain. Those are the connections that continue to echo long after everything else has moved on. Those are the connections that wait quietly until they are finally acknowledged. And whether they admit it now or much later, the awareness continues to rise beneath everything else. It continues to press forward. It continues to insist on being seen. And with each passing moment, avoidance becomes harder to maintain. You remain present in their inner world, not by choice, not by planning, but because certain experiences reshape perception so deeply that returning to who they were before no longer feels possible. That realization keeps unfolding within them, stronger, clearer, harder to deny. And even when they try to push it away, it returns with more force each time, as if the truth itself refuses to be silenced. Because something else begins to happen, something unexpected, something beyond their control. The more they attempted to create separation, the more vividly you appeared within their thoughts. Memories surfaced without warning, conversations replayed in fragments, emotions returned in waves they did not invite. Even in moments meant for peace, your presence remained, quiet, steady, unshaken, like a shadow that does not leave, only waits. In songs they once ignored, your presence now echoes. In ordinary moments, meaning suddenly appears where none existed before. In silence, your memory becomes louder than noise. The strategy of avoidance begins to fail. Slowly, then suddenly, then completely. And within that failure, something begins to form. Not a sudden realization, not a dramatic shift, but a gradual unfolding that sinks deeper than logic ever could. They begin to understand that this was never only about losing you, it was about losing themselves. Every attempt at distance pulled them further away from a part of their own emotional truth. Every effort to suppress what they felt created more internal separation than external relief. And only now is that becoming visible. It does not arrive in one moment. It builds in fragments, in pauses, in quiet discomfort that has no clear explanation. It appears in daily life that feels slightly incomplete. It appears in nights that feel longer than they should. It appears in thoughts that return without permission. And slowly, unavoidable questions begin to form. Why does nothing feel fully aligned anymore? Why does your presence keep returning in their awareness? Why does life feel quieter, flatter, less vivid than before? These questions do not leave easily. They stay, they grow, they press for answers, and within them, the truth becomes clearer. They were never simply distracted by you. They were awakened by you. You were never just a passing impression or temporary emotion. You became a reflection, a mirror, a point where something inside them felt more alive, more real, more present than before. In that reflection, something inside them began to shift. Barriers they built over time started to lose strength. Defenses they trusted began to fall apart without force, without noise, without warning. Now they see it more clearly. Walking away was not only about leaving you behind. It was also about leaving a part of themselves behind. A version of themselves that felt open, a version that felt honest, a version that could experience connection without hesitation. And that absence is now impossible to ignore, because the reflection still lingers. It does not fade, it does not dissolve, it stays, and it grows stronger the more it is resisted. The realization arrives like distant light slowly breaking through after long darkness. Gentle at first, then unavoidable, then overwhelming in clarity. And with that clarity, consequences begin to surface. Not loud, not sudden, but steady and undeniable. The distance they created was never protection, it was delay, it was postponement. It was an illusion of safety that could not hold the truth back forever. It only stretched the moment before realization arrived, and that moment has now fully come. The space they kept between them and you did not remove anything. It did not dissolve anything. It only slowed the inevitable confrontation with what was already real beneath the surface. The truth was always waiting, patient and steady, refusing to disappear. They now understand something they once resisted. Avoidance was never safety. Avoidance was never strength. Avoidance was only delay. A delay in awareness, a delay in awakening, and that awakening carries weight, humility, and a deep inner shift that cannot be reversed. Within this quiet and undeniable awareness, something becomes clear with force and clarity. You were never a threat to them. You were never someone to fear. You were never someone to push away in resistance. You were, instead, a reflection, a mirror, a presence that revealed what they had not yet faced within themselves. You illuminated the parts they tried to keep hidden. You exposed the emotions they did not want to name. And that is why your presence felt different from everything else. That is why your words stayed in their mind long after conversations ended. That is why your silence still echoed, even when nothing was being said. That is why your energy remained long after physical distance grew. And this explains something even deeper. No one else has affected them in the same way since. No replacement experience has carried the same weight. No other connection has echoed with the same intensity. The intensity was never accidental. It was never created by outside restriction alone. The intensity existed because the connection itself carried depth, and that depth made it feel forbidden, not because it was wrong, but because it was powerful enough to disrupt internal stability. It stepped outside their emotional boundaries. It crossed into places they had not prepared to explore. It challenged the structure of how they understood themselves and how they managed their emotions. Because of that, they pulled back. Because of that, they created distance. Because of that, they attempted to contain what felt too large to hold at the time. Now, in moments of still reflection, they carry emotions that are no longer easy to suppress. These emotions are not loud. They are not chaotic. They are not dramatic in expression. They are quieter than that. They are persistent. They are steady. They remain beneath thought, beneath logic, beneath distraction, a constant awareness that does not leave. This is not desperation. This is not obsession. This is not overwhelming longing. Instead, it is something more subtle and more difficult to define, a quiet emotional weight that follows them without demand. Within that emotional space, different feelings begin to surface. A sense of regret that is not loud but steady. A sense of curiosity that grows with time. A sense of questioning that cannot be fully resolved. There is also guilt. Guilt for stepping away without explanation. Guilt for leaving silence where clarity might have been offered. Guilt for not acknowledging what was felt in the moment it was happening. There is curiosity about you as well, about who you have become, about how you have grown, about how your life has moved forward without their presence in it. And beneath all of this, there is fear. Fear that the moment that once existed may never return. Fear that what was left unspoken may remain unspoken forever. Fear that time may have moved beyond the point of return. Yet, even within uncertainty, another emotion quietly appears. Hope, fragile, soft, unstable at times, but still present. The hope that something has not been completely lost. The hope that connection is not fully erased by distance. But above all of this, something stronger rises. Respect. Deep respect. A recognition that was not present before but now cannot be ignored. They begin to see your consistency. They begin to see your patience. They begin to see your dignity in silence. The way you did not chase. The way you did not force, the way you did not turn distance into resentment. Instead, you held your ground. You remained steady. You did not collapse into bitterness. You did not lose yourself in reaction. You maintained emotional balance, even when clarity was missing. That stability leaves a mark, a quiet mark, a lasting impression that does not fade easily. It stays, even when other memories become unclear. This is the moment they begin to understand something important. What they encountered was not ordinary. It was not casual. It was not shallow. It carried depth that they did not initially know how to handle. And now the question emerges with weight. Why does this realization arrive only now, after so much time has passed? The answer is simple and unavoidable. Realization rarely comes in noise. Realization rarely comes in motion. Realization rarely comes in the middle of distraction. It arrives in stillness. It arrives when life slows down. It arrives when external movement stops demanding attention. It arrives when silence becomes unavoidable. Something in their life has shifted. Something has ended, or weakened, or changed shape. Something has interrupted the usual flow of distraction, and in that interruption, reflection begins. Thoughts that were once pushed away begin to return. Memories that were once ignored begin to resurface. Emotions that were once suppressed begin to speak again. In that silence, your presence returns with clarity, not distorted, not blurred, but sharp, recognizable, unavoidable. The truth they avoided before becomes difficult to deny now. They begin to see what was always there beneath resistance. They did not step away because the connection lacked meaning. They stepped away because the meaning was too strong to process at the time, too real, too revealing, too emotionally demanding. And once something is that real, it does not disappear. It remains, it waits, it returns, when conditions allow understanding. What matters most now is this realization. You did not lose something because of absence. You did not lose something because of failure. What happened is something else entirely. Growth occurred. Distance created reflection. And through that reflection, understanding matured on both sides, even if unevenly and slowly. The version of them that once pulled away was not capable of meeting the depth that existed. That version was shaped by fear. That version was shaped by hesitation. That version was shaped by internal limitation. But you remained consistent through it all. You did not become smaller. You did not reduce your presence. You did not force alignment with uncertainty. Instead, you became a marker in their memory, a turning point, a silent reference that cannot be erased. Whether they return or not is no longer the central truth. The central truth is transformation. The central truth is impact. The central truth is change that has already taken place. Because some connections do not exist to be completed quickly. They exist to reshape understanding. They exist to alter perception. They exist to awaken awareness that was previously dormant. You remain part of that awakening, not as an echo that fades, but as a presence that altered direction. Something in them changed because of what they experienced with you. And even if silence continues, the effect does not disappear. It continues, it develops, it stays alive in memory and reflection. Because what was real once does not become unreal simply because time passes. It becomes deeper, it becomes clearer, it becomes more difficult to ignore. And in the end, one truth stands firmly above all else. Distance did not erase anything, time did not remove anything, silence did not destroy anything. It only revealed what was already there, waiting for the right moment to be understood.